remember, today is the day that we are going to do our lesson study for the Holocaust Museum. And as you all know, I've told you that we are going to be talking about resistance. Our main objectives for the day are to really identify what resistance is, and then also to see the differences between armed and spiritual resistance. All right, so very first order of business here, because we're going to need every bit of our 90 minutes, we're going to be taking a little pre-assessment just to see what you already know about resistance, and then we're going to do the same exact thing after, okay? Here it says, please indicate your position with respect to the items below by marking them as follows. If you do not prefer one side to another, put an X on the 0 in the center. So if you feel like you're somewhere in the middle. If you agree with one side, put an X on a number closest to that side. The higher the number, the more you agree. All right, go ahead and just keep those off to the side now, and we're going to do another one of those at the end to see what you've learned, to see if you've gained some understanding of what resistance is. All right, so eyeballs up here. All right, you're going to work with your group. Here's your kind of starting question. When you think of resistance, what comes to mind? What types of resistance do we see around the world today? Okay, so with your group, work with your group, and you're going to come up with various examples of resistance. And then I also want you to try and draft a definition of what you believe resistance is. Okay, so definition of resistance, and then think of examples, whether they are current examples of resistance, whether they have happened in the last 20 years, whatever it should be. I want you to come up with different examples of what you think resistance is. And what you think. Yeah, those are great. Yeah, those are definitely great examples.
Or we can have like just a bunch by someone who's
Work together.
All
right, so let's talk about what examples you came up with and then why you picked what you did. So make sure we're focusing in here on what different groups say. Haiti, go ahead and tell me. Oh, were you hoping I wasn't going to pick you? Tell us first, tell me what you came up with for your definition.
For resistance, we said that it was like standing up to a higher authority.
Okay, standing up to a higher authority. And what were some of your examples?
Some of our examples were like the I can't breathe going on.
Okay, the I can't breathe happening. Okay.
The boycotts, and then protests.
Boycotts and so we're talking all about like Ferguson, as well as that where you're, okay. All right. Tainer.
Which one?
Definition.
Definition.
What'd you come up with?
Our group came up with going against somebody, protect your thoughts and your ways.
Okay, and what examples?
The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, okay. Any others that you wrote down?
An example is peaceful protesting.
Peaceful protesting.
Like Gandhi in India.
Okay, like Gandhi in India. Okay, very good. Austin?
Our definition was going against the rules/laws set by the authorities.
Going against the rules/laws set by authorities, okay.
And then we said schools we couldn't boo at the pep rally. We couldn't boo them.
Okay, so not being able to boo at the pep rally. So your form of resistance was turning around, okay. Any other ones that you have on there?
We put protesting, but Hobo argued that wasn't actually resistance.
And why? What would be your argument for that?
Okay, so like they said, just like the protesting of the Ferguson case and stuff, but I feel like that's not, because I don't think our resistance definition is quite right. I think it should like say something about like denying a group of people their rights or something like that.
Okay.
And so then that wouldn't be resistance, because they weren't getting denied anything. Like they weren't saying, like they didn't say you have to be here, like things like that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so maybe rioting, protesting, resistance, maybe are all a little bit different,
Yeah.
right? All right, we'll get there. We'll see if we can't figure that one out. Justice. Last one here. Definition, what'd you come up with?
A hindrance of control against the control that the Nazi Party had over the Jews.
Okay, so you went specific right to the Holocaust.
Yeah.
All right, and what examples did you come up with?
Like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising.
Okay, so the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising.
And how they educated their children to continue to pray.
Okay, so you were like, yes, you were there, and that's what some of the things we will be going over. So education, you know, I'm still allowing the kids to be able to experience that, and that's a form of, and we'll get into which kind of one that is. Obviously, that one is not armed resistance, but we'll figure out where that kind of fits in with spiritual and cultural resistance. Okay? All right, so on your packets that I have given on your table there, okay, in that little grayed out area, go ahead and put in the definition of resistance here. And this definition, I didn't get crazy, this is right from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And it defines resistance as the refusal to accept something new or different, an effort made to stop or to fight against someone or something, and the ability to prevent something from having an effect. But after having the official definition now of resistance, I want you now to maybe come up with a few other ideas or examples of what you think resistance is. And again, they can be current, they could be in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think for the second definition, I still think like ways like Ferguson and all the stuff that's happening in New York, especially with the second definition, because they're fighting against like.
Well, we originally like didn't think that places like Ferguson and like what's going on in New York were resistance, but with especially the second definition, we decided that yes, it was resistance.
Okay, this back group here, what did you guys say for an example now that you have the definition?
We talked about that one girl, Malala, or whatever,
Okay.
that got shot for standing up for her rights.
Yeah, but you're going to talk first and foremost about obstacles resistance. One of the big things that we've gone over is that Jews often were perceived as going like what? What did we talk about? Going like lambs to the slaughter, okay? And I think that it's very important, that's one of the big parts of this lesson that we want to get across to you, is that was absolutely not the case. And there was many types of resistance efforts that were happening, but there were a lot of obstacles to resistance. Lots and lots of obstacles to resistance, okay? Again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. This is a lot of group work today, but 2 minutes. I want you to think about now, get your heads wrapped around this time, okay? Wrapped around 1938, 39, 40 into 45. What types of obstacles would there be to the Jews with everything that we've learned so far? Okay, what were probably some of those really big obstacles that prevented them at times from resisting?
Yeah.
Go, brainstorm.
Like
Plus, like,
Yeah.
other people that resisted were used as examples, so
Yeah.
they didn't want to be put in that.
What do you got?
So fear.
Talk with me here. This group right here, what did you have? What did we say? They were isolated. Very good. What else?
Didn't they have a certain, like, they couldn't have a certain amount of money?
Okay, so they were kind of hamstringed as far as money was concerned. I know you guys had echoed that as well. This group, what else?
Lack of resources.
Lack of resources, okay. What else?
Public humiliation.
Public humiliation. Go a step further.
Death.
Death as far as if I resist, what might happen?
They might kill my
They
family.
might kill my family members. All
All
right.
their supplies too were taken away because all the rights for the private ownership of firearms were taken away.
Yep.
So nobody had guns.
One of them was the superiority of the German military. Think of what they had done, you know, in the war. What happened to Poland? What happened to France? I mean, think about all of those, okay? So that made it kind of virtually impossible for many Jews to resist. The idea of collective responsibility, again, you guys, you got that. All right, if one person were to resist, what would they do to the rest of the people within the camp or within the ghetto? Would they withhold more food? Would they go after family members? Did you want to have that on you? Okay, with that guilt of what happened to somebody else because you tried to resist. Isolation of Jews, great job. Lack of weapons. And the secrecy of the deportations. What do I mean by that? We've talked about this, but the secrecy.
They just thought that they were getting relocated.
Yeah, they thought they were getting relocated. They didn't know that, you know, Auschwitz or whatever was at the other end of this, okay? So was there really a need to resist if they didn't know that that was coming, all right? Types of resistance. All right, we're gonna get into and we're gonna talk about the two different types. We have physical or armed resistance, and then we have spiritual resistance, okay? And that can be cultural, that could be religious. There's a couple of different sort of subheadings that come underneath of this. Survival is one of the biggest forms of resistance. You don't necessarily need to pick up a gun, okay, or a weapon. Surviving was a big, big form of resistance. All right, so go ahead and fill in this definition there underneath armed resistance. So it is a physical act of defiance or aggression towards the Nazis. And then very quickly, thinking in terms of the Holocaust, what examples maybe could you come up with of armed resistance? Okay, so yep, definitely. All right, so what would examples be?
Warsaw
Ghetto Uprising is one of the biggest forms, or one of the biggest kinds we've talked about. How about blowing up a crematoria? Did anyone write that down? Yeah, okay, that would be an example of armed resistance. How about blowing up, we talked a little bit about this, but blowing up you know, the train lines going into one of the camps, or blowing up any of the partisans. You guys mentioned the partisans and the Bielski brothers, which will be going on. Spiritual resistance. This is opposition that involved cultural and religious aspects to defy the Nazis. So get that filled in there, and then again, go ahead and talk with your group and try to come up with some examples of this. Spiritual resistance. Okay, so teaching your kids where to be, definitely an example of resistance. Stacy.
We talked about how they just
John.
continue to pray and believe in their faith.
Continue to pray and to believe, absolutely, despite knowing that what could potentially happen to you.
Death.
That you could die. Yep. Jordan. Diaries. That's a big one. So whether
when we were watching like one of the videos like out of people's journals, one of the boys' parents celebrated his the king's bar mitzvah. Sorry.
I knew where you were going.
Gave him the bread for his gift.
Okay. And that's huge to still have that, ability to do those types of things. I mean, that's huge. Whether it's
Well, we were talking about like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and pastors like that still preached. They, even though they risked their life for it, they still preached against Nazi ideology. And so even like Lutherans and Catholics, it wasn't just Jewish people in resistance. It was.
You are absolutely correct. And while this one is focused particularly on Jewish resistance, you are right. There are a lot of other people that resisted. So that is what we are going to be going over right now. So this is where you're going to begin to go. On your tables, okay, there's a packet that is there. And you are going to go through and you are going to be looking at all of the different types of examples of resistance. And then we will rotate after about 10 to 15 minutes. This is where I will kind of have to just see how we're doing and where you are at. Okay? Now at each of the places, you're going to see whether it is a picture, whether it is a reading. So you might have to read out loud to your group. Most of the readings are not very long. But what I would like for you to do then, all right, you're going to have to label it. So you're going to put down like artifact, you're going to put like table 2, artifact number 3 that's in there. And they're all labeled at the very top. After you do that, I want you to choose. Is this a physical or is this a spiritual resistance or cultural resistance?
Describe a lack of Jewish resistance. In fact, this was not the case because Jews resisted in many ways.
Hundreds gathering to say the prayers and the blessing of Hanukkah, of the miracle of Hanukkah. We really did not give up. I mean, give up. Future, there was none. But we did not give up. In spiritual.
All right, have your packets out in front of you as I'm going to be going through and we're going to be asking you all questions. And I want to know why you chose what you did, okay, for all of these. And we might not have time to get through all of them, but I certainly want to get through most of them. But I want you to now reflect upon these same questions, okay, and identify whether you've learned more about resistance, okay? So answer the same questions as they come around.